Today, I'm going to be breaking down exactly how I made $6,000 in 7 days by essentially working less. Trust me, I know it sounds stupid, but this is the exact breakdown that I'm going to be working through, the exact skills, exactly what I went through to make that 6 grand in just 7 days by essentially working less. But jumping straight into it, when I say working less, right, I'm comparing it to when I was working a trade. So when I was working a trade, this is my normal job. The job that I was working week to week, coming out of high school, just had no idea what I wanted to do. So I did basically what every other bloke was doing in Australia, just launched myself into a job, started making money. But what I was finding when I was working this job, right, I was working 40-hour weeks, week to week, 40 hours. It was a physically demanding job. And, as everybody knows, the trade, like you've got to trade your body to make that money. So very physically demanding. Mentally, I was drained and honestly just checked out. Like I just wasn't present. I just didn't enjoy the actual work that I was doing. I was still living paycheck to paycheck. Despite making the money that I was, each week I was still living off paychecks. I was still struggling to make ends meet, basically just struggling to essentially enjoy my life outside of paying for bills, groceries, rent, fuel, food, things like that. I was also controlled by the hours I work. So what I mean by this, right, is because I had to clock on, clock off, like any standard 9 to 5, I was controlled by those hours. I had to show up to site to essentially make the money that I was making, right? I had no direction or drive when I was working this job. I just didn't know where this life was going to get me, this career that I was working, this job that I ended up in out of high school. There was no direction or drive, and I didn't want to be there. Now, I was living off $1,000 paychecks each week. And for those of you who live in Australia who are watching this, you know that in today's cost of living, the day that this video is made is in August of 2025. The cost of living right now is absolutely cooked. $1,000 barely cuts it anymore, and it used to back in the day. Compared to what I'm doing right now, right? So working 4 to 6 hours, completely from the comfort of my home, mentally locked in, and I was driven by purpose. I felt like I was actually doing something with myself rather than just clocking in, clocking out, basically just working a job to pay the bills. I was paid based on the value that I had. I was bringing value to the table, and that's why I was getting paid, not because of the hours that I was clocking on. I had freedom to do whatever I want now. So when I mean this, like it's because I'm working from home, I can go out and do things that I want to do and work those 4 to 6 hours, essentially notch those numbers up, provide the value, and after that, I could do whatever I want, right? Go to the gym whenever I want. Literally just go outside and go for a walk. Simple things. I know it sounds so simple, but those are the things that you aren't granted by working this job, right? So not stressing about bills either. That was the one thing that I was constantly stressing about working a trade was bills, payments, things that I had to pay for just to live. I have clarity and direction now. This is another huge thing that I really did struggle with working a trade. I felt like the clarity and the direction of my life that I was going down working that trade was just not one that I was aligned with or one that I really wanted at the end of the day. And that has obviously led me to make $6,000 in 7 days. But today is obviously a breakdown of how I got there, what skills I learned to essentially live out this future now compared to this one. Right now, I know you guys are probably sitting there thinking, but Liam, surely you're the 1%. Surely you're the very few people that actually succeed in making money online. And I'm here to show you proof that I'm not the only one who learnt these skills, got success, and essentially changed the trajectory of my life. There's a few people that I want to show you guys. The first one being Hudson. So I'm actually close mates with this guy. We've been friends since primary school for a good 10 years. And basically this guy was an ex-tradie who made $12,377 AUD in a single week at 20 years old. Crazy result. But basically he goes on to say he was from a small country town, the same country town that I was from, high school dropout, left school, and he was basically just working a construction job for a good 4 years, trying to get a qualification in the trades. And all he knew was how to work with his hands. I feel like a lot of people, especially in Australia, or especially blokes who come out of school, just don't know what they want to do. All they really know is how to use their hands. And it was the exact same as me. That's all I knew how to do. I didn't know how to apply myself. I didn't know how to actually bring value to the marketplace to make more money. Now, fast forward to 9 months after, he's been in this position, right? He's managed to scale his income from $1,000 in a week to over 12 grand using the exact same skills that I learned. The same skills I'm going to break down to you guys today. Now, his initial goal was obviously to make 10 grand in a month, and he's managed to make that and some in a single week, in just 7 days, using the same skills that I've learned. He's also helped me make my 6 grand I did in 7 days. But the second person that I wanted to sort of touch on is my boy Chawong. This is another guy that I wanted to show you guys. This guy is an ex-uni student who basically was in his degree, just didn't feel like it was going to give him the directional clarity that he wanted either. Doing a degree, he thought he was signing himself up to a life that he wanted, but he came to the realization that this was not the thing that he wanted to do forever. So he locked in with a few skills, changed the trajectory of his life with these skills because of the value he brought to the marketplace. So he jumped into his online journey 4 months ago, and over the past 2 months, he's been given the opportunity to work in a sales role, learning literally just one skill. Using that one skill, right, he managed to make 4.5 USD or around 7,000 AUD, and no followers, no content, literally just sales. Just one of the skills that I'm going to mention today. Now, I also wanted to break down the belief that a lot of people have, coming out of school, you're a little bit confused. You just don't understand how money works, how the marketplace works, or what value is actually needed for businesses or just a business in general, right? So there's this great quote that I do like is, understand there is a price to be paid for achieving anything of significance. Now, you must be willing to pay that price if you are wanting the results. You must be willing to pay the price of the hard work or the determination that it takes in order to get to where you want to be. It's just that simple. And the same goes for a trade. The same goes for uni. You need to be able to pay the price of your time, your focus, your energy, your hard work in order to get the degree or start a trade business. It's just about rowing the right boat. If you think that that's the right boat for you, then obviously you're in the right spot. But if you feel like I did when I was in a trade, just no direction, no clarity or no purpose in what I was doing, you can still apply that same work ethic, that same logic to something else. You just need the right vehicle. Now, the common belief that a lot of people have that they don't understand, is you're paid based on the value you bring. You're paid based on the skills. Those skills have value in the marketplace, right? So especially tradies, most of them think they're stuck because of their boss, the industry, or the economy. But the truth is, your income, what you make week to week, equals out to your value to the marketplace. You're going to hear a lot of this today, but the kicker is, right, the value isn't fixed. It's not something that's just unchangeable, right? It can be built from the ground up. And this is something that I experienced when I was going through my journey. I knew nothing about these skills, right? But the thing is, it's not a fixed result. It's not fixed value just to you. These skills can be built. They can be learnt. They can be built on in order to get better results. You just need to stick at it. Like it says over here, you must be willing to pay the price in order to get those results, right? You don't need a degree. That's a common misconception. Like my guy Chawong, he had a degree. He literally worked his ass off in uni, had a degree, and he made 7 grand using one skill. These skills also don't require you needing to start a business. It's just applying yourself to learn a skill that is valuable to the marketplace. You need to learn high income skills like sales or marketing that actually move the needle for a business. The more problems you can solve, the more money you'll make, because the problems that you can solve with those skills, they're valuable, right? They're valuable to a marketplace or a business. So because that holds value and holds leverage within a business or the marketplace, you're going to be positioning yourself to make more money using those skills, and it'll just better yourself as a person. Right now, I want to apply this exact same logic that I've been talking about to everyday life. Everyone understands there are jobs out there that just don't pay as good as everything else. Now, why is that though? So with retail workers as an example, right? On average make $20 to $30 an hour, requires physical labor, and it has replaceable skills. There's not much training required either. Now, the reason why it's $20 to $30 an hour is because of the value that holds in the marketplace. Because the skills are replaceable, because there's no training required, and it's literally just physical labor that you're paid on. That is the reason why it's worth $20 to $30 an hour, right? Because those skills, they're replaceable. Your next day, you could get replaced by someone on the street because there's no training. All it takes is just physical labor. Now, the exact same logic can be applied to a qualified electrician. Obviously, these guys make a little bit more than what our retail workers make, $100 to $130 an hour. But why is that, right? Because once again, it's physical labor. That is something that is required of the job. But the kicker is it takes 4 years of training to get to this point. Now, why is it $100 to $130 an hour? It's the exact same logic that does apply to retail workers. It's the value that it holds in the marketplace and the skills needed to work that job. That is why it's worth $100 to $130 an hour. It's direct reflection of the skills required to work the job. Now, the exact same logic can then be applied to a qualified surgeon, obviously higher end, meaning that $360 an hour is the value of the skill or the training required to essentially work that job. But what is required to be a surgeon? 15 years of training and university, plus intense work hours and just intense work overall, right? So the $360 is obviously a lot more than these two combined, right? But the thing is, what is required of a surgeon? You need to go to university for 15 years of training. So that alone means that you've got to educate yourself. You've got to get the right skills, the right knowledge, and the right know-how in order to be qualified to work this job. And that is why you're paid $360 an hour. And that might seem a lot to some people for sure. But, the 15 years required to actually get there is why it's worth that much. Now, I think we all understand and know the traditional path. This is the exact same path that I was told as a kid to go down, go to uni, get a trade. And obviously, I went down the trade route. So when you go down the traditional path, you go to school, you pick a trade or uni because realistically, that's what's in front of you. That's kind of what's the easiest and the most logical to a lot of people, which makes sense. I went down the exact same path. But you work 40 to 60 hours a week for 1 to 2 grand from that work. The pay rises are slow, the income is capped and controlled by someone else, externally controlled. You are basically controlled by a boss or someone that's higher up than you that determines how much your skills are worth, right? So holidays are earned, they're not chosen. Income stops if you stop working. Promotions are based on seniority and not skill. This is a big one, all right? Promotions to get higher up in the corporate ladder, it's based on how long you've been there, not skill. You could be the most skilled person in the workplace, but the boss doesn't really take that into account. Sometimes it plays a part, but it's more so how long you've been there. You need to grind. You need to really put in your graft to essentially go anywhere and work your way up that corporate ladder. Now, stability equals your comfort zone, meaning stagnation. You're a cog in someone else's machine. You're essentially building someone else's dream for them because you're an employee, you're part of the puzzle that needs to keep this machine working. But at the end of the day, those skills can be replaceable. Much like our retail worker over here, your skills are replaceable, meaning that you're a little cog in the whole machine, but your cog is easily replaceable. Anyone can work a retail job, right? So the leverage skills path, this is the path that obviously I'm on right now. You got to build rare skills, solve bigger problems, earn more, and work less. Much like how I was breaking it down before, right? I was working 40 hours a week compared to 4 to 6 hours a day. That's because I had leverage. I had valuable skills to the marketplace that would then earn me more and basically make me work less. This is kind of what I'm getting at, right? So you want to learn high income skills with the leverage path. The sales and marketing, the same skills that I learned. You can work remotely or from your phone. You earn based on performance and not hours. That's a big thing, is you're trading your time down the traditional path. Down a leverage path, it's based on your performance, your value, right? Scale income without scaling hours. You plug into businesses that already exist, meaning there's no startup risk. Leverage skill over time. Choose who you work with, when and where. Your income grows with your skill set and not your job title. Just to break this down even more, in case you're not sort of catching what I'm saying, right? So we'll compare the three of working a trade, being a remote closer, and creating content. So the hours worked between each. Working a trade, 40 hours, which is what I was working, compared to a remote closer, 4 hours. 4 hours of work. Creating a content, one video. One video compared to the 40 hours that you work in a trade. And the comparison between the two, $1,000 a week versus 1,200 passively. Just posting the video, letting it sort of simmer and just get pushed out to the algorithm. You can make $1,000, the exact same thousand you make for 40 hours of work compared to the one video that you've posted. And obviously remote closing, the exact same. There's a parallel between the two. It's the same amount of money, but it's less hours. Physical labor, skills required for working a trade is literally just physical labor. Now, with remote closing, you obviously need to be good with communication and sales, but that is a direct reflection with the value you hold in the marketplace as to why you make this money. Now, content creation, branding, building an audience, and having strategy are the skills you need in order to create content. That one video that would generate you $1,200 passively. So the point I'm trying to drive home here, right, is you must understand that you need to develop your skill set. That's the number one thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is skill sets bring value. Value brings money. And money means that you're going to be able to work less and you're going to start getting your time back and start doing work that's purposeful and not just trading your time or effort for that money, for that return on your investment, your time, your effort, your physical labor. So for me, I tried several different business models and they all failed. They all failed. I realized the difference as to why I wasn't getting the success I wanted was because of how underskilled I was. I needed to learn sales and marketing. But why these skills, right? So I was literally trying to learn how to build an entire business from scratch without knowing the fundamental skills needed to succeed. That's why I would wager that sales and marketing were the two most important skills I have actually learned to get the success that I did, the 6K in 7 days. But why are they so important? So without sales, you cannot convert. And without marketing, you have no leads to convert. So I know a lot of people say, I want to start a business. I want to start being an entrepreneur, right? But the two most valuable skills and the two fundamental skills to actually become successful in a business is sales and marketing. Because without sales, how are you going to actually convert the leads? How are you going to actually convert your possible buyers or customers into paid customers. They've converted, they've bought your product or service because they believe in the value and the problem that they have that it solves, right? With marketing, how are you going to get your brand out there? How are you going to actually reach buyers or people that actually are interested in the problem that you solve with your product or service? The two most fundamental skills to actually starting a business. And for me, when I first started, I tried starting this business from scratch and I realized without these two skills, where was I going to go? I couldn't convert and I had nothing to convert. Now, the next part of this breakdown, I'm going to be showing you guys exactly what roles I learnt to basically understand these skills and apply that knowledge. Bring that value, but not only bring the value, actually apply it to a real situation. So the first way or the first role that I worked in was appointment setting. I then moved to remote closing before eventually getting into social media branding that then sold a digital product or service. But the first one I obviously wanted to start with is appointment setting. So appointment setting is basically sending DMs on behalf of a business or an influencer that sells one of these digital products or services. And basically, you're the middleman. You're the one that sets up these leads to jump on a call with the closer. Now, the closer, what do? Well, they jump on this call with the lead, with the person that is interested in buying the product or service that is a digital product, and basically closes the deal using their skills. Now, the last one is obviously social media branding. This is one of, if not the most effective ways to basically market your product or service. This is the last step that I sort of got into once I understood these two roles first. Okay. Right. Now, the next section that I wanted to break down is what roles did I actually learn to learn the skills of sales and marketing? The first one being appointment setting. Now, essentially what appointment setting is, right, is you are a DM setter who sets up a lead or a customer, possible customer, on a call with a closer. You need to learn the skill of appointment setting to basically understand how to do this. But this is the first role that I sort of stepped into to actually basically learn how to sell, right? Now, the second one is obviously closing. Once the lead is booked on a call with the closer, this is the second role that I learned to basically learn how to sell. Now, what the closer does, they're booked on a call with the lead, and basically the closer has the skill of sales and they use those skills to close the deal, to get the money over the line. The last one is social media branding. So this is one that is obviously to do with marketing. You're putting your brand out there to basically bring awareness and market the digital product or service that you're promoting. This is just posting on social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, sometimes Facebook. Basically just getting awareness out there as to what it is you're actually promoting / selling. The last one being, obviously, you need something to sell, right? So having a digital product, service, or offer to actually sell. But the thing that I sort of learnt was these three first, closing, social media branding, and appointment setting. Now, the reason I learnt these is because without actually knowing how to set one of my leads, I didn't know how to close them either. They all interact with each other. But basically, by posting on social media, I then knew how to both appointment set them, how to close them, which then led to me understanding how to create my own digital product or service. And these all interact with each other, they all interlock because they all have to do with the skill of sales and marketing. So without actually going into these roles, I didn't actually know how to apply the skills that I'd learned in sales and marketing. These roles get you to understand exactly what these roles play in the final part of this whole thing, which is essentially creating a product or service to actually sell that solves a problem or pain that your possible customer might have. I wanted to show you guys a real life example of this. Now, I wanted to show you guys an actual real life example of what this looks like. I know a lot of people would follow this guy on Instagram, but basically, this guy's name is Adam Sullivan, and he basically runs an Instagram account that posts fitness content towards obviously people in the fitness niche that want to get fitter, lose weight, gain muscle. And basically, he scaled his personal brand to 700,000 followers under the name Evidence Based Training. But basically, this guy has created a digital product or service that solves the problem of people wanting to get in shape, put on muscle, lose some fat, and this digital product or service solves that issue that his customers will have. So, Adam Sullivan, fitness creator, posts on Instagram and TikTok to get attention and views on his page. He gets millions of views and engagement, as you can probably tell with the 700,000 followers that he does have, which funnel into CTAs in his videos or bio, which then leads into the DMs of his account. This is where the appointment setter comes in to set those leads for a closer's call, right? This converts to obviously his digital products and services that he has made. So because he's obviously learnt the skill of sales and marketing, he has now created a digital service or product that solves a problem of people that want to get fitter or, put on muscle. Now, Adam is a perfect example and shows that he has developed a digital product or service that is high ticket. I'm going to break down what high ticket is later in the video, but he doesn't have the time to convert these leads himself. He has 700,000 followers, which is a lot of people. So, in his mind, like he's thinking, I don't have the time. I don't have the effort or the energy to go through all of these leads that I have to basically convert them and make money off of them. And that is where you come in with your skills. So in order to work in the high ticket sales space, you need to be equipped with the skills of appointment setting or closing to work with these creators or businesses to help him convert. Right. Now, I know I mentioned high ticket offers, but what are they, right? So a high ticket offer usually ranges between $2,000 and 10,000 plus. It can go way beyond that, but it obviously is high ticket, meaning it is high in value. And Adam is one of those people who does sell his high ticket offer through his Instagram. That's how he markets his product. And as you can see, the bro's got a bloody Porsche, which is what I want, my God, but very jealous of him. But obviously, he is able to market his high ticket offer, his high ticket product to his followers and basically convert those through appointment setting, closing, and his personal brand. That's the three roles basically involved in why he makes the money that he makes. I were to completely start from scratch, like zero knowledge at all, this is the exact 4-step process that I would take in order to make that $6,000 in 7 days again. So step number 1 being we must understand how to actually book leads. This is a fundamental must that we must understand, because without this, you'll never actually be able to run a business. Hands down. The easiest way to actually learn how to book these leads is by working on an appointment setting role. I know I mentioned earlier, this is one of the first ways that I started to make money online and actually understand sales and how it operates with a digital product or service. And I'm telling you, bro, like this is a must. This is a definite must. It is a fundamental skill / role that you need to understand and learn in order to actually run a business. Now, how do you actually become an appointment setter? So to become an appointment setter, you need 2 things to actually become successful as a setter. So you need to know, obviously, how to set, and you need a solid offer to actually work with. So you can look at, job boards like Seek. This is a site in Australia. I know there's plenty of job working sites across the world on plenty of platforms that you can look at. Just search up appointment setter and there'll be plenty of opportunities that come up. Or the other way is actually cold outreach on Instagram, YouTube, or School. So like the Adam Sullivan example, you can reach out to these creators, these big creators that sell a digital product or service. Usually they'll have a call to action in their bio, meaning that they sell a product or service that is digital. You can literally go up to them and be like, yo, I have the skills of appointment setting. I'd like to work with you. But in terms of the success rate with this, it is quite hard to land one of these roles by cold outreach because, hence the name, it's cold outreach. And these people don't know you. And you're just another person that obviously wants to become an appointment setter. There's not really a lot that would separate you from the next person. But the way that I sort of learned how to actually appointment set was joining a sales agency. This is one of the other ways that you can go about this, because the reason why you join a sales agency, in my case anyway, was they'll train you, number one. Number two, they'll actually help you practice and implement that skill. And number three is you can actually work with that agency as an appointment setter for them because you've been trained up by them. They know who you are. You know the product and service inside out. So your skills of appointment setting are going to be a lot more applicable to them, right? So why appointment setting is perfect if you're working a job, just wanting some side income or a side hustle. A reason why appointment setting is so great for people in a job, especially in my case when I was working in trade, it was so hard to find the hours to actually do something outside of work. And appointment setting, like all you're doing is sending DMs. You can send DMs on Smoko in between your breaks. And basically that way you're still working whilst being at work. So it's a perfect side hustle, side income sort of stream that you can work on while still working a job. And this is the way that I went initially whilst I was still working my job, working my way out of getting out of that job and actually getting, to quit my job. So it is a simple skill to learn and pick up, but you must understand it can take time to actually learn the skill. So realistically, the ball is in your court, whether you invest into the right training or sales agency to reduce that time, or just freehand it yourself, go on YouTube and find some free information online, basically. So investing in the right training is always going to speed up your process because it's right there. It's in front of you. It's easy to follow. And that way you can just go straight in, start reducing that time that you're going to take just going out by yourself, figuring out what do I need to do? And the other way, you can spend countless time doing cold outreach to find yourself a role. But at the end of the day, you may not know if it actually is a good role for you until you actually try it, right? Because the thing about cold outreach is it's called cold outreach for a reason. These people that don't know you. So you're going to spend countless hours trying to reach out to these people. Number one, not know if it's a good offer for you and whether it fits, what you actually want or you're passionate about. And also, you'll never understand if it's actually a good role until you expose yourself to it and actually go through the process of being in that role. Now, appointment setter, I wanted to break this down for you guys. An appointment setter in Australia can expect to make a weekly income ranging from 1.2 to 2 grand plus. This range both reflects base salaries and commission-based structures, where some roles offer a base salary plus commission. The potential for higher earnings exists, particularly with commission-only or high-ticket sales roles. So basically what this is saying is, as much as these roles, they might pay you a base salary, you can actually make commissions off of the leads that you set and close. But obviously, the higher the value the product or service, the more that commission is going to be. And 9 times out of 10, high-ticket sales offers do offer commission-based salaries because it's an incentive for you to actually go out there, do the work, and book some more leads for that product or service. Now, I wanted to show you some results, obviously, from me and how much money I sort of made with appointment setting alone. I made $700 in a single day just with appointment setting. This is not to say you can't make more, because you definitely can. As it says up here, 2 grand plus, that's not a capped earning. If you get a high ticket sales offer as an appointment setter, and the ticket itself, like the high ticket offer itself, is high in value, it's not to say you can't earn $700 or more. Another few examples that I wanted to show you is Vayasi. This guy is in the community that I'm in, and he's only 16 years old, and he made $1,000 in just 3 days of being in the sales agency of the community that I'm in. Obviously, another one right here, Dehan. So he made 1700 AUD in 1 week as a seller. So, like I said, it's not to say you can't earn more than what I did. It obviously depends on, number one, like how much work you can actually put into it. Number two is how valuable is the product or service and what it essentially is priced at. We have covered appointment setting. This is step number 2 of how I would make the 6 grand in 7 days again. So step 2 of the 4-step process, we must understand how to actually close a booked lead. Once they're booked, the job's not finished, unfortunately. But this is a fundamental must, much like appointment setting, to understand. Because without this, you will never actually be able to run a business once again. The easiest way to learn how to close leads is by working in a remote closing role. This is a fundamental, and obviously learning this, you need to actually be able to apply that skill in a role to make money. So becoming a remote closer is the best way to learn sales by far, because you're actually applying that skill that you've learned into a real life situation in front of real life prospects and real life leads, if that makes sense. So to become an actual closer, you need 2 things. You need to know how to close, number 1, and you also need a solid offer to work with. So you can look for these on job boards, obviously Seek and Indeed in Australia, or you can do cold outreach on Instagram, YouTube, or School. Now, the third option is obviously joining a sales agency. Much like appointment setting, being in a sales agency, they'll train you up, they'll actually help you implement those skills and give you the opportunity to become a remote closer for them. So why should you learn remote closing? It's a fundamental of business to learn how to sell, right? To convert these leads, you must learn the skill of sales. If you can close a deal on Zoom for a high ticket price like $15,000, and realistically you can sell anything 100% without a doubt. I mean, you're literally meeting some random person on a call. If you can use those skills of sales to close that person on a call, you can sell anything. You can go out there, work for any other business, or you can work for your own business. But the number one key is it's critical to understand how to sell, because without sales, how do we actually convert these leads? We can't, right? So working with high ticket offers will always give you a bigger piece of that pie. These offers are high in value, meaning your skills used to close that deal are going to earn you so much more than a low ticket offer. Now, a remote closer's weekly earnings can vary significantly, but they typically range from about 2 grand to $7,600 a week. You can potentially earn 15,000 or more for high ticket closes. This depends on many factors like experience level, the industry, the specific sales process of the company. But entry level closers might earn between $3,000 to $5,000 a month, while experienced closers in high ticket sales should earn $10,000 to $30,000 plus per month. Now, I wanted to show you some examples of some of the guys within my community and what success they have had within just learning sales alone, like the one skill just by itself. So this is my boy Callum. He made 40k AUD in a single month. It had no content, no followers, no brand, just the skill of sales, just showing up and putting in the work, especially the shit he didn't want to do. This is the most critical part, and the thing that I mentioned at the start is you must understand that there is a price to pay with this, and it's work ethic, and actually driving towards these results. That 40k AUD doesn't just come overnight. It takes practice. It takes actually applying yourself to learning the skill. Now, how much I made as a remote closer. This was the second way that I started to make money online after appointment setting, $5,300 just from closing in a single week. Another example is my boy Chuang. He's in the same community as myself and Callum. He made 7,000 AUD in 7 days, just 7 days of work. And over the past 4 months, he has been growing as a salesperson, obviously exposing himself to the skills, and eventually got a chance to work within the sales agency that he learned, and it only took him 2 months to get there. Last week had his biggest paycheck yet of 7,000 AUD, and that was just in 7 days. Much like Callum, no followers, no content. It was just the skill of sales. Now, the last two examples I wanted to show you was my boy Michael and James. We'll get to James in a second, but this guy made $7,500 in 1 week of closing. Once again, no content, no brand, just using the skill of sales. He was able to leverage himself as a person to offer value to a business and use those skills to make money. This guy was an ex-chippy, used to work in construction, and basically knew that it wasn't for him, so he picked another path. Now he makes 7.5K, not for the hours that he trades in, but the skills that he has, the value that he provides to the marketplace. And much like James, similar results, $6,000 in a single week as a closer. Once again, no content, no brand, just the skill of sales. He had literally no content going out. He just used that one skill to make himself more valuable to the marketplace, much like my boy Callum and Chawong and Michael. 3 of this 4-step process of me starting from scratch to make $6,000 in 7 days. The third step being social media branding. This is something we obviously went over with Adam Sullivan, but I'm going to break it down in more depth here. So using all of the skills like appointment setting and remote closing, I moved into building a personal brand. So producing content, right? Literally started documenting the journey, talking to a camera about wanting to make money online and changing the direction of my life. It was literally that simple, just making videos, talking to a camera, literally just talking about what I wanted out of making money online, and people relate, know, and trust you for that, because at the end of the day, who doesn't want to make more money, right? So this will help you build an authentic and loyal fan base. Just by talking to the camera, you'd be surprised at how many people actually, fuck with you and like, know, and trust you. That's the main thing that I'm sort of getting at here, because they will follow you because of who you are. Building a personal brand not only opens so many doors to things like brand deals, sponsorships, or networking with other creators and businesses, it gives you more leverage. That's the number one thing that I want you guys to take out of this is these skills, right? Appointment setting, closing, social media branding, they're all giving you leverage because you bring value to the marketplace. It's the number one thing I want you to remember is it builds leverage. And when I say it opens so many doors to brand deals, sponsorships, or networking, I don't know if you guys have ever seen, online, right? Like a fitness creator, for example, they'll be like, they'll plug a pre-workout or they'll plug, protein or clothing, and they'll say, use discount code Brandon for 10% off. When someone uses that code, their code, because they've promoted the product through their brand, they get a commission or a slice of the pie of that sale that person has made through them, if that makes sense. So not only are you able to market your own digital product, but you're going to open so many doors to brand deals. Clothing brands might hit you up to wear their clothes in your videos and pay you money for that. So social media branding isn't just about making videos. It opens the doors to so many other things, to work with other creators, work with other businesses, and slowly just build yourself up in the game, okay? So you have a following of people that like, know, and trust you. This is super, super important to social media branding is when you build a following, people like, know, and trust you, so they will trust your decision as to what you choose to sell or promote. So not only is it giving you leverage, but you now have a following base that actually screws with you. They like who you are and they will trust your opinion or your decision as to what you do. Obviously, to a certain extent, you need to make the right decisions. But for me, my personal experience with social media branding, right? Literally my first video that I ever posted, literally the first one that I ever posted, I was talking about the cost of living crisis, how hard it is to live in Australia. I got 20K likes, 1.8K comments. Obviously, these analytics, they're good indicators of how well your video touched people in terms of like their emotion, like what you're bringing out of them, how relatable and authentic you are as a person. 800,000 views, and I essentially gained 10,000 followers from one video. This is the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is literally just posting content online. You are buying a lottery ticket every single time you post a video. Every single time you might get lucky and your account blows up, you get a bunch of followers, and now you've got a bunch of doors that open, but it just takes one video to blow up. Obviously, since then, I've scaled to about 15,000 followers. And this is purely just through, talking about topics, sharing my opinion on wanting to make money online. And obviously people relate to that. They like that because they see themselves in me. Not only can you, create content for yourself and build your own personal brand, but you can also manage other people's, because once you built that skill, you now know how to manage other people. You now know how to scale other people's personal brands. So you can literally create a digital product based off of that. And there's a few creators out there like, Mino Lee or Kent, who literally make content to build other people's personal brands, help them, post content. What's the right content to post? How to actually scale those personal brands. Because once you've built that skill, you can then apply that to other people's personal brands, not only just your own. So that's another avenue that you can go down just by learning this skill. Now, the last step, the fourth step and final step of the 4-step process that I would follow if I was to restart is the process of skill stacking, right? Obviously, we know how to appointment set, we know how to close, and we know how to create personal brands. We've built the foundations for skills. We know sales, we know marketing. Through these skills, right? If you combine all three, that is how you skill stack. That is how you actually increase your leverage to obviously use your skills for more value in the marketplace. But obviously working in these roles, appointment setting, closing, and personal branding, you are building the skills as you learn these roles, right? Because you're understanding the fundamental process of how a business works through these roles. And whilst you're learning, these roles, these build on your skills. So not only are you obviously learning the skills by themselves, but actually going out there and applying them. That's the critical part that a lot of people don't understand as you're starting a business is as much as using these skills, and as much as learning these skills is important, you need to be able to apply them to a real world scenario through these roles that we've obviously gone over in the past 30 minutes, right? Now, I wanted to show you an example of someone who's actually learnt the skill of sales and marketing through these roles and actually gone on to start his own business and create his own product, right? This is my guy, Vita. He's a Kiwi. Basically, this guy was in the same community that I was in. He learned the skill of sales and marketing through the roles that we've obviously mentioned. It was appointment setter, closer, obviously built a massive personal brand. A lot of people like, know, and trust this guy through the content he produces. And he used the power of his personal brand to scale his online presence. So his face is out there. There's so many people that like, know, and trust this guy. And using those skills, he's able to create his own clothing brand. And this is why it's so important to not only learn these skills, but learn them first before you start a business. Before you start thinking about business models, you must understand the fundamental skills behind actually starting a business. Sales and marketing, they're so critical to succeed in a business. Now, a lot of people go on to start a business, start a clothing brand, and they flop so quickly. And I wonder why. Well, it's because you haven't built the back, you haven't got the skills to essentially back what you're actually trying to create, what you're actually trying to sell. But Vita's obviously got 70,000 followers, so that falls into the personal branding side of things. Now, this guy, he started his own clothing brand called Crucible. As you can see here, there's a few screenshots of him getting some sales from the clothing itself. But this guy, had he not known these skills, sales and marketing, right, this whole entire business would have flopped so quickly. He didn't know how to convert. He didn't know how to actually get this product that he was creating out to the market. He's obviously used his personal brand as his powerhouse behind that. That was the marketing side of his success. And there's a few screenshots over here of his content, but this is how he reaches his audience. This is how he reaches the masses. And this is why it is so important to not go to business models first, but learn skills. Build yourself as a valuable person to the market to then go start a business. A lot of people talk about, starting a clothing brand. I feel like everyone wants to start a clothing brand. They think they've got the next best thing, but it's more than just having a product itself. It's more than just, being the next best thing and having the creative side all figured out. You need to understand that as much as having that creative side and knowing, what you're going to create, you need to understand how you're actually going to make money off of it, how to actually convert these leads, how to actually make sales. But Vita's a perfect example of this. Inside the community that I'm in, he was making 10K a month on a consistent basis, every single month, raking in 10K. And he used those skills to make that money to then go on to his next venture because he had the foundation set in stone and he knew exactly what he had to do in order to succeed with his business. Now, obviously, for me, right, I've learnt the skills of appointment setting, closing, and personal branding. The skill of sales and marketing, essentially, using those roles to learn those skills. Gotten to the point now where I can make 6 grand in 7 days, which is crazy. But the thing is, I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't get here by myself because I just didn't. I did not get here by myself. For me, originally, I went down the YouTube route, I went down free resources, and I just had no luck. I didn't get as far as I wanted to because I didn't have the guidance. I didn't have someone there that was in a position that I wanted to be in, that I could ask questions off of, get that guidance, get that, process as to how I could get to the point I'm at now. And it also was a slow burner. I was constantly running into issues going through these YouTube routes, watching videos like these. I just didn't know how to apply the knowledge that I had to an actual real world scenario like appointment setting, closing, or even just personal branding. It was kind of like I was just swinging for the fences, hoping something would stick. A lot of you guys reach out to me saying the exact same thing. You've tried or you feel like you want to try, but you need some guidance. You need some help to essentially get to where you want to be. So what I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to put a link down in the description to book in a one-on-one call with me, and put my Instagram in there as well. So if you guys have any questions, if you want to reach out, just talk to me about anything I've mentioned in this video, do not hesitate to reach out to me. But I appreciate you guys watching the video. I hope it was of some value, and I'll see you all in the next one.